Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 175 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts designed for folk with a growth mindset or those who would like to develop one. This is an opportunity to have conversations with folk who have already figured out that the best way to get better at doing what you do is to get better at being who you be. So, good morning or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Um, Love the conversation we get to have today. There have been lots of emails and messages sent to me in between when I sent out the email and this morning. And by the way, if you will, go ahead and click share just underneath this video, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Would love to have you invite your friends, your colleagues, your community to join the conversation. The more voices, the richer the conversation. The wow, playground today is going back. Um, what I want to play with today is the idea of cultural architecture, right? Um, I have the belief that there are four currencies and only four currencies that matter: time, effort, energy, and attention. Um, and they're the only true currencies, right? Money is just a fungible asset we use to fund the things that we do in our world, but the values driven elements of our life are the things that matter. And the resources that we have that are exhaustible, time, effort, energy, and attention, those are the ones of the highest value. So, and I use true currency because they're precious. Like I said, they're exhaustible and they're completely under our individual control. Yeah, you have 100% agency over how you invest your time, your effort, your energy, and your attention. And and there are definitely things, people, places, activities, beliefs, habits that can drain you of any or all of those currencies. But only if you let them, only if you allow them to drain you. The quote we're playing with today is: our environment shapes us. Choose wisely your surroundings and the people in it. Our environment shapes us. Choose wisely your surroundings and the people in it. So back in April, I started a complete media fast. I stopped watching, I stopped listening to, I stopped reading the news. Cold turkey. Now I figure, from a practical sense, that if there's something going on in the world that I need to know about, I have folks around me who will tell me. And a few of the things that have happened over the last several months, absolutely. People are keeping me informed of the things that are important for me to know. That's a much better way to manage my energy. I had been a daily addict of that constant stream of news-based toxin that I've been inviting into my daily life since 1992 when I worked on a presidential political campaign. Oh my God, I feel so much better. And even more than that, Elaine and the kids have told me they like me better. I'm nicer. The toxins that I was taking in and the cultural spasms that have our news cycle torqued up into a 24/7 cortisol stream, keeping me triggered and agitated. And as I took a look over the last 16 years of my life, 16 in particular, um, I see example after example after example of reprioritizing my true currencies. I have explored a long, long list of necessary endings. I have ended relationships. I have changed vendors. I have, separated from employees. I have redesigned or left partnerships. I have left groups. I have designed from organizations. I have resigned from boards. I even fired a publisher. And there are so many more examples of those necessary endings. And what I see as I look back and how I changed my currency investment strategy is I've gotten incredibly intentional about my beliefs, my feelings, my thoughts, my behaviors. And I've done that out of respect for myself. And that becoming extremely intentional, that's how I made the decisions of what the necessary endings are. That's how I culled the energy drainers. That's how I continue to create massive return on my true currency investment. I became a cultural architect, designing and shaping everything in my environment to support the life that I was and have been and am continuing to create. And I can't see who the Facebook user is, but it says they've said I've been doing something similar, not a complete fast, but 90% reduced. It works amazingly well. That's the opportunity to get very, very clear. And so that's the question to play with is what are you architecting? How are you architecting your environment to support the life you're creating? Or just make it easy. How are you architecting your environment? Because again, our environment shapes us. Choose wisely your surroundings and the people in it, particularly the people in it. So I'm curious, how are you architecting your environment? What are you doing to be intentional about the things that are in your world that feed you, that drain you, that support you? I just had the opportunity to evaluate whether I wanted to or sign up again for another year of a mastermind that I'm part of. And for me, part of that journey was determining what I wanted to be working on for me and for my business and for the world around me. And that was more the practical. It's what's the vision of what I'm creating down the road? What's for me my 2045 vision? That's 24 years from now, I'll be 80 years old. Yes, the math is horrifying. And what is it that I want my mission to be as I move from here to there? So, as I'm working on crafting my 2045 mission, that's the practical of what I want to be doing as part of this mastermind. There was never a question of the environment and what it brought. The community that's there, choosing wisely my surroundings and the people in it. Those are people that, for me, it's choosing wisely to keep myself surrounded by. I'm surrounded by people that, intimidate and inspire me all at once, and that are doing things in the world that light me up. And the energy of being around them raises me up. So being very intentional, choosing wisely my surroundings and the people in it, the community aspect of it wasn't a question. The taking the pause, setting the time aside to do the work, to begin to craft the vision of what it was that I wanted to create, that was the important piece. Like what Tessie offered, changing investment currency, ROI in my true currency, designing and shaping everything in my environment. Awesome. The opportunity to create and prioritize intentionally. It's interesting. There's a conversation about values my wife and I have had for years. Our values don't change throughout our life. The way we prioritize them do. There are periods in my life that I may have overweighted, for instance, the values I have around contribution and leaned more into work. But that doesn't mean that value is less important now. It means that I've got a better balance of priorities between the value set I have around family and connection and the value set I have around contribution. Those value buckets, they've always been there. I've just gotten better at managing the prioritization of it. And that again, this is all part of that true currency conversation, right? It's how are you architecting your world and your environment and the players that are in it to support the world, the life, that you're creating for yourself and for those around you. It's interesting. I've watched many of the folk. Let's stay with the conversation about the mastermind that I'm in. I've watched folks over the last 2.5 years change where they live, change the environment they're in. One of our friends is in Chicago and has now decided that during the winter she's spending as much of it as possible in LA. It's changing the environment that she's in, and it's not just about the weather, but it is. Actually even take that up a level. Watching so many folk who during the pandemic, when they were going to be working remote, I mean, San Francisco was in the Bay Area was hemorrhaging folks to live there. If they're going to work remote, they could live somewhere else that they enjoy more and that they can afford better and they can save money. And they were moving all over the country to places they wanted to live. We saw people leaving New York City as well. And this is nothing about those locations, just the expense of the market. People got to be intentional about where they live, time, effort, energy, and attention. The amount of distraction and effort and energy drained from trying to make ends meet in the two of the most expensive markets in the country when they could live anywhere and work from there. It's astounding how the pandemic had people being more intentional. How much of that will continue as we begin to come out of it? Again, that's the invitation as we cut, as again, more the conversation of how we're coming out of this pandemic. This is the opportunity to be militantly attentive to how you architect your environment, how you choose wisely the surroundings and the people in it. So this week, hold the lens of cultural architect. That's the invitation for this week. How do your decisions shift when you hold the lens of cultural architect and you become intentional about your investment strategy on those four true currencies: time, effort, energy, and attention? Right? And whether you come to the Facebook group to share what comes up for you or you send me a message, would love to hear from you how cultural architecture, that lens of being a cultural architect, shifts your world this week. And so between now and next week, go out and be a cultural architect. See you on Monday.